I take care of cells. I grow up cells, so since I'm pretty lonely sometimes, I call my cell babies, and I talk to millions of cell babies all day long. So you'd think I'd be comfortable talking in front of you guys, but I'm still very nervous, so.
You got it.
All right, that was my nerd joke. I had to get that out of the way. Who wants to see my new boobs? All right, just kidding. That was my second joke, but now I have your attention. So let's get this thing started. So my name is Laila, and I grew up in Charleston, here over in West Ashley. And then I moved away to go to Clemson for school. Go Tigers! Sorry, Carolina fans, you guys are terrible this year, and we're so good, so we got no chance. So then I moved to Durham, North Carolina to go to Duke. I got my PhD in biomedical engineering doing lung cancer research. And then after that, so that was in 2016, and after that I got my dream job working at a biotech company where we are engineering lungs. So pretty sci-fi sounding stuff, but dream job nonetheless. So things were going pretty well for me. I turned 28 in January of this year, and a few days after my 28th birthday, I found out I had breast cancer. So I want to share with you guys the story of how I was diagnosed, because that brings me to my first message I want to share with you guys today. So I went to the gynecologist for my annual gynecology exam. Yes, I'm one of those weirdos that actually goes every year, and you guys should too. So when the gynecologist was doing my breast exam, she started feeling the same spot over and over. And she then had me feel that spot, and I felt a mass. And the rest of the appointment was a blur. All I know is that I left that day with a piece of paper in my hand that told me I had an ultrasound the next morning. Thank God it was the next morning, because when I heard mass in my breast, all I could think about was breast cancer. So I went and had my ultrasound the next morning. The ultrasound technician comes in the room, asks me where the mass is, puts the probe on me for less than a minute, takes a couple pictures, tells me that it's just dense tissue. As many of you guys probably know, young women typically have dense breasts, so it's really hard to see anything on them. So she said, there's nothing for you to worry about. We're, perfectly comfortable with just saying this is dense breast tissue. I'm gonna go get the radiologist to sign off on it, and you'll be good to go. So she left the room, and I could not stop thinking about the fact that I had a solid mass. Why couldn't she see it? We should be able to see it somehow. So when she came back in the room, I asked her a million questions. I said, can I get a mammogram? She said, no. Said, can I get a biopsy? She looked at me and said, you can't biopsy something that's not there. So I left that appointment, and being the persistent person that I am, I called my gynecologist, and she also reassured me that it was nothing to worry about. She said we were overly cautious even going to get it imaged, and that we should be good to go. So that was a Friday. I spent the whole weekend online researching breast cancer. How is it detected? I was pretty convinced at that point that I probably had breast cancer. And I was ready to go at 8 a.m. on Monday morning. I had picked out the cancer institute I was going to call, the imaging clinic. I had their phone number ready. I think I waited 30 seconds after 8 a.m. to call them just to make sure someone would be at their desk. And I immediately started trying to convince them to let me get a mammogram. Because as many of you know, mammograms aren't recommended until you're 40 years old. I'm only 28. So I told them everything I possibly could to convince them to let me have a mammogram. And I got an appointment. Within a couple days, I went to that appointment. I spent the entire day at the clinic. They didn't just do a mammogram. They imaged me on every system that they had. I ended up leaving that day with a biopsy done. And within a few days, I found out I had breast cancer. So my first message to all of you guys is to be your own advocate for your health. If something doesn't feel right, then don't just accept that. If you have questions, make sure they get answered. As a part of that message too, I want you guys to all check yourselves. If you haven't checked yourself recently, go to the bathroom after I'm done talking and after the cool band is done and check yourself. A fellow breast cancer survivor came up with the idea of feeling it on the first. So the first of every month, set a reminder in your phone and check your breasts. If you guys want fun reminders for feeling it on the first, you guys can follow me on Instagram. I try to come up with hilarious ways to get people to remember to check their breasts. So that's my first message. So shortly after getting diagnosed, I kept asking the question, why me? Why did this happen to me? I'm only 28 years old. I had the genetic tests done and they came back negative. I didn't have the BRCA mutation. I didn't have any other mutations that would have predisposed me for breast cancer. I was always really healthy. I ran the marathon in Greenville, South Carolina, and I got 3rd overall women. So I've always been, I've always been really into being a healthy person, so it just didn't make sense to me. And I was really mad at the whole world. I was mad at everyone that didn't have cancer. I didn't want to talk to a single healthy person for a couple weeks after getting diagnosed. I thought nobody could understand what I was going through and what I was about to go through. No one would get it. But I quickly realized as I started learning about all the treatment I was going to have, I quickly realized I couldn't do it alone and I was going to need an army. So I started sharing my story. I told my family, I told my friends, I told my coworkers, and I even got online. I got on Facebook and told everybody I knew. And I could have never imagined what support I would get from doing that. I had hundreds of messages from people. I had people that I barely knew reaching out to me, connecting me with other breast cancer survivors, asking what they could do to help. So it was an incredible showing of support, and I can honestly say I don't think I could have done it without that. I received so much support. So I did my first surgery in February. I got a double mastectomy with reconstruction. They found that the cancer had spread to a lymph node, so I had to do a second surgery, and they removed all the lymph nodes on my right side. And then I did chemo. I did 6 cycles of one of the most intense chemo regimens that's out there. And then I did 25 rounds of radiation therapy. I can honestly say I'm done with the worst of the treatment. And it would have been a lot more difficult for me to get through all of that without all the support. You guys probably could guess cancer is really expensive. All those things I listed are really expensive. I was really fortunate to have a fundraiser started on my behalf, so I didn't have to worry about the bills associated with my cancer treatment. I could think about what's the best cancer treatment for me. Also, because I'm 28, I'm young, I don't have a family yet, and I've always wanted to have children. I was able to sneak in an egg harvest in between my surgery and chemo, so I've been able to freeze eggs. And I don't think I wouldn't have been able to afford that if I didn't have the support that I had, because no insurance companies are gonna cover that. So support is important. It's important to support organizations like Rockers for Knockers because it's really impacting patients and their ability to get the treatment they need. So that's my second message, is support. So my third message is for all of you guys to make your pink mean something. So this is my first Pinktober as a cancer survivor. I think you guys probably are already familiar with the fact that Breast Cancer Awareness Month is October. I know it's November now, but we're still on the trailing end. I was super excited about the Pinktober and everything that was pinked. I was a little bit overwhelmed because for me, I was shocked to see so many people. Maybe I didn't notice it before, but how many organizations, how many people are supporting breast cancer in October? So I was excited. I went to my first breast cancer event. I was thinking to myself, okay, I'm a survivor, so I'm probably gonna get recognized or something really cool like that, or I'm just gonna feel inspired or motivated. And unfortunately, what I quickly realized when I got there was that no one mentioned breast cancer. No one mentioned awareness. No one reminded anyone to check themselves. There wasn't even a box for donations to give any money to any breast cancer organizations. So I left that day furious. I was so upset that someone could take advantage of the disease I had been spending the last 9 months fighting to make money for breast cancer. So I want you guys to make sure when you're supporting breast cancer that you're supporting organizations that actually matter. I can wholeheartedly say that Rockers for Knockers is one of those organizations, so this is a great place to put your money.
The t-shirts over here.
Yes, t-shirts are over there. Please buy a shirt. So I was actually diagnosed with a really aggressive type of breast cancer, and if I had gotten this diagnosis 10 years ago, I wouldn't have a very good chance of living a cancer-free life. But because of the advancements in research and treatment in the last 10 years, I can report to you guys that I have a 90% chance of living a long life without cancer. So when you guys put on pink, I want you guys to think of me. I want you to think of all the other survivors out there and all the ones that we've lost. I want you guys to think about how I wake up every day hoping I won't get a recurrence and that I'll get to live out my life and live out my dreams. So that's my third message, is make your pink mean something. And my last message is I want to tell you guys my mission moving forward. So I feel like now I understand why I got breast cancer. As I told you guys before, I started my career doing cancer research. And so now I understand that I'm being called back to do cancer research. I want to eventually start working on making sure we can get treatments to the clinic faster. There are so many cool advancements in research and in science, but it's such a hurdle to get those into the clinic. So I want to make sure that when new discoveries are made, we can get those to patients faster. I want to work on personalized medicine. So as I told you guys before in my pretty terrible science joke, I culture cells all day long. So for me, when I went through this, I thought, okay, why can't they just take my cancer cells and culture them, and then we can test which treatments work the best and know that ahead of time? That would be super easy for me to do. So it is my goal in my lifetime to make that a reality. And lastly, I want to be able to empower other women. So when I was diagnosed, I already knew what they were going to tell me the treatment trajectory was. I was a cancer researcher. I knew I actually had a copy of the guidelines that the oncologists use to figure out which trajectory patients should go on. I already had that. I already knew when I went in there that that was what they were going to tell me. But so many women don't have that same knowledge or background. And so I want to empower other women by teaching them about their disease so that they can make informed treatment decisions. So that's my mission. I don't want to take up any more time from this fun day. So if you guys want to read more about my story, my blog is called Sweater Puppies. And you can find me on Instagram for all your breast cancer reminders at 2sweaterpuppies, to the number. So anyway, that's enough science talk for today.